Hi folks, today we're going to learn how to create a Preciosa flower bracelet using the continuous method. I have listed the materials that we will be using on the description of the video. Start by taking 2 needles and threading them. You're going to thread 1 needle on each side of your thread, and the thread's going to be an arm and a half lengths span of thread. Pick up 8 11/0 seed beads and a ring and slide it down. So you want to have your beads and your ring slid down all the way until it's at the very bottom of your thread, not to the bottom of your, not to the other needle, but if you were to put both of your needles together in your hands like this and slide your fingers, your index and your thumb fingers down to the very end of the halfway point of your threads, it will look like this. Then what you'll do is you'll pick up a 8/0 seed bead and slide it down, but you're going to crisscross. So you're going to crisscross, it's going to look like this. You're going to pick up 1 needle, put the seed bead on, and then your other needle is going to go the other direction. So you're going to crisscross, do a crisscross motion, and pull both needles until you create a loop. So it should look like that. Then you will take a superduo. You will pick up your needles and grab 1 superduo on each needle and slide them down all the way down to the beads. Then you will do another crisscross type motion by taking each needle, 1 needle at a time, and going through the top holes of the superduos, or I should say the bottom holes from this angle. So you're going to take 1 needle, go through both of these holes. Let me zoom in a little bit. And then, so we're going to go through these holes here with 1 needle, pull it through, and then take your other needle and go the other direction through those same 2 holes and pull it through. Then on each needle you will pick up 4 more superduos and slide them down. Once you've slid the 4 superduos down on each thread, you will tie together. What you want to do is create a loop, so you're going to tie them together like that. So these are now tied together, and I will do another tie just to create a knot so it'll be tight. And now, as you can see, I tied a knot there in that same section, and right in here, and as you can see, it's tight. So I have the petals created. Now I got to put the embellishments, the seed bead embellishments. I'm going to put an 8/0 seed bead in between these petals here, all the way around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under that hole. I'm going to go through this hole here, and then I'm going to come out through this hole here and put a 8/0 seed bead, go through that hole here, put an 8/0 seed bead, go through that hole here, 8/0 seed bead, and so on until I get to this section here. So as you can see, I pierced through that bottom hole. Be careful not to pierce through any thread. But I went through that bottom hole. So you can see my needle. Went through that bottom hole of that superduo. And I'm going to push it through slowly. And then I'm going to go through this hole here, this top hole. Then I'm going to put a 8/0 seed bead and go through the next top hole of the next superduo. And then I'm going to get another 8/0 seed bead, slide it down and go through this top hole. And I will continue doing that until I get to this seed bead here. And I will come back to you. Okay, now as you can see, I'm coming out of that seed bead right there. See the thread? So coming out of here, and that's what it looks like so far. That's what yours should look like. So what I'm going to now do is I'm going to pass through this bottom hole here of the superduo. Pull it through. And then I'm going to go through the top hole of that same superduo. I'm going to push it through. And when you're pushing through these superduos with threads in there already, be very careful not to pierce the thread. Just go slow. So I'm going through that other hole with the same superduo and pulling it through now. And it should look like this. So now I'm going to let go of this needle, this thread and needle, and I'm going to start on the other side. So now we're starting the other side. I'm going to basically do what I did previously to get these seed beads in. But this time I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to work the opposite direction. I'm going to go through this bottom hole here. Let's see if I can get a better angle here. So bottom hole here. Then the top hole of that same superduo. I'm going to push through this bead here. I'm going to push through that top hole. And then I'm going to put a seed bead, 8/0 seed bead right there. Push through this top hole and continue until I get seed beads, 8/0 seed beads between the petals, and I'm going to come through that seed bead and I'll come back to you. Okay, so I'm going through that hole and I'm going to slide it through. Then I'm going through the top hole of that same superduo and the 8/0 seed bead. Then the top hole of the adjacent superduo. So now I can continue putting my 8/0 seed beads like I was mentioning before, all the way down until I get to that seed bead right there. I don't know if you could see it, but so I'm going to continue putting 8/0 seed beads between these petals here until I get to this 8/0 seed bead right here. And I will come back to you. So I've made it to the bottom, and I've inserted all the 8/0 seed beads and came out of that bottom seed bead there, that 8/0. And now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to push through this bottom hole of this superduo here. Being careful not to pierce the thread. If you're using nylon thread like me, it can be pierced. I'm using KO thread, or not KO, it's 1G. It's very similar to KO. And then I'm going to go through this same superduo that I came out of, but I'm going to go through the other hole, the top hole, and I'm going to meet up with that other thread. They're going to meet. So I'm going to pull it through. So now what we want to do is we want to take our threads and we want to put them both through a 4mm pearl that will go in the center here. I'm using 6/0 seed beads. They're about the same size as a 4mm pearl. So I'm going to use a 6/0 seed bead in this example. But you can use either one, 4mm pearl or 6/0. And as you can see, both threads are now coming out of that 6/0 seed bead, and I'm ready to lock it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my threads and I'm going to go through, just pick a side. I'm going to start with the left side. So I'll go through that superduo right here. I'm going to go through the hole from the inside going out. Then I'm going to come back and go through the top hole of that same superduo and go through that 8/0 seed bead on top. So I'm going through that bottom hole right now, and I'm going to pull it through. Then through the top hole of that same superduo and through the 8/0 seed bead. And it should come out of that seed bead looking like that. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the other thread. The other thread, however, I'm going to go the opposite direction. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to go into this direction. So I'm going to go through that hole of the superduo, coming out on this side. Then I'm going to go through the top hole of the same superduo and push through that 8/0 seed bead. So pushing through that bottom hole, then the top hole of the same superduo and the seed bead. And that should be your result. The continuous method of doing the first flower on a Preciosa. Now we're going to do the second flower, and I'll show you. What we're going to do first is we're going to grab each needle, and we're going to put an 8/0 seed bead on each needle and slide it down. So we're grabbing an 8/0 seed bead on each needle, and we're going to slide it down. So I've turned it upside down, easier to work, I think. So I slid both 8/0s down, and I'm going to get another 8/0 and I'm going to crisscross. So basically both, I'm going to push it a little bit so it's on the thread on one side. Now I'm going to crisscross, taking the other needle, go the opposite direction. And I'm going to slide it down all the way down to the two 8/0s. And it'll look like that. Now we're going to take a superduo on each needle. We're going to put a superduo on each needle and slide it down. So we slid the two superduos down to the seed bead, Now I'm going to take one needle, I'm going to push it through those two holes. Then my other needle and go the opposite direction through those same holes. It'll look like this. Now I'm going to put 4 super duals on each needle and slide them down. And then I'm going to tie them together like I did in the previous flower. And after tying twice, I made a knot to make sure that it was secured. And now we will begin the laying the seed beads between the petals. And I'll bring this closer so you can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this hole here, and I'm going to pull through, and then I'm going to go through this hole here, and I'm going to pull it through. So the thread's now coming out of this top hole here of the super dual, and I can put a seed bead on and go through the super dual directly next to it. So I'll push through and we'll see what that looks like. And basically, just like I did in the previous flower, I'm going to just place a 8/0 seed bead between each of these petals, and then when I get down to this bottom seed bead here, I will continue, but I'll come back to you. So I've inserted a 8/0 seed bead between each of the petals on one side, and I've exited out that bottom seed bead, that 8/0 seed bead. Now I'm going to pass through the hole, the bottom hole of this super dual that's adjacent to the seed bead, and then I'm going to go in through this hole, the top hole of the same super dual, and come out. So I'm going out that hole and coming out the top hole of the same super dual. And as you can see, I'm just going to let go of my needle on that side. I'm going to start on the other side. So this needle here, so I'm going to pass through that hole. Then I'm going to go back this direction through this top hole here, come out of that seed bead, and come back to you. So as stated, I'm going through that hole there, coming through, and I'm going to go through this hole here and the 8/0 seed bead. So it will look like that. Now I'm going to pass through this top hole of the super dual. I'm going to place an 8/0 seed bead, pass through that top hole, 8/0 seed bead, pass through that, 8/0 seed bead, pass through that, 8/0 seed bead. Then I'm going to pass through both of these, this super dual and this 8/0, and come back to you. Okay, now as you can see, I'm coming out of this bead right here. This is my thread, and I'm going to go through the adjacent hole of the super dual, so as you can see now, I'm coming out of this hole here, and I'm ready to go through that top hole of the same super dual. And the thread's coming out of that center section between the two super duals. I'm going to let go of this thread and the needle, and I'm going to start on the other side. Or actually, I'm sorry, I'm already at the bottom. Both threads are now coming out of this center section here. So now I'm ready to put the pearl on. I'm going to put a 6/0 seed bead. And as you can see now, both of those threads are coming out of that 6/0 seed bead right in the center there. I'm trying to get it to clear up here a little bit. But yeah, apparently my camera doesn't want to clear up on close-up. But okay, there it goes. So as you can see, both of those threads are coming through that center bead there. Now I'm going to push through. I'm going to take one of my threads and I'm going to push through that bead hole, that bottom hole of the super dual, and pull it through. Then the top hole of that same super dual and the 8/0 seed bead, and pull it through. Now I'm taking my needle and going, my other needle, and going the opposite direction now. I'm going to go through that bottom hole of the super dual, as you can see, pull it through. Then the top hole of that same super dual, as well as the 8/0. And we're now here. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and repeat. We're gonna keep making flowers until we have 8 flowers on the bracelet. And then when you get to the end, I will show you how to close it off like we did a clasp here, a ring, I'm sorry, with a loop of beads. And so what you're going to do is you're going to continue, you're going to put an 8/0 seed bead on each needle, like we did here, going back. So you're going to put you're going to put an 8/0 on each needle, crisscross an 8/0. Then you're going to put a super dual on each needle, slide it down. Then you're going to crisscross going through these 2 holes. You're going to crisscross with both needles, going through opposite directions through these top holes here. Then you're going to put the 4 super duals on each needle, slide them down. Then you're going to tie those together in a loop. Then you're going to go through, once you create the loop, you're going to go through this bottom, pick a side, bottom hole. Then you're going to go through the top hole. You're going to put a seed bead on. Then you're going to go through that next super dual and put seed beads all the way until you get to this hole here. Then you're going to do the same thing with the other side. You're going to go through this hole here, the super dual. Then you're going to go through that hole of the super dual, the top hole. Then the seed bead, then the top hole of that super dual. Then you're going to add seed beads. You're going to do the same thing as you did, but you're going to add seed beads on this side until you get out here. Then you're going to go through this super dual and come out here, and you'll have both your threads coming out this center here. You're going to put both your threads through a 4mm pearl, come out here, take one thread, pass through this bottom hole, come out through the top hole, and you'll be out through the seed bead. Take your other thread, come out of this bottom hole, go into this top hole, and you'll be at this, coming out the other side of the seed bead. So that pretty much sums it up. You're going to repeat that process for each flower until you have either 7 or 8 flowers. 8 is about an average size Preciosa that I've seen. If you need it to be longer, I will show you what to do to add rings and make it longer if you need more than that. But 7 is for a small wrist. Okay, I'll come back to you. Okay, so now we're at the other end of the bracelet. For the purposes of this video, I'm only going to go halfway through the bracelet, and I will close it off right here at the end. It'll be similar to this side here, but you would have 8, possibly 7, but most likely 8 flowers at this point. So what you're going to do is take your needle and you will pick up 8 11-0 seed beads and a ring. So I put 8 11-0 seed beads and a ring on one of the needles and pushed it down the thread. Now I will insert this needle here through that bead, through the 8-0. What we're doing is we're closing the, we're making a loop, and we're going to tie it through, tie it in so that way it's locked in and doesn't come loose. So we've went through that 8-0 seed bead and pulled it through, and now you can see that the 11-0s have created a loop. Now what we're going to do is we're going to push through all of these beads here, these outer beads. You're going to go through this top hole of the superduo, the 8-0, top hole of the superduo, 8-0, all the way through until you get to this point here, and I will come back to you. So now I'm done. I went through the all the outer beads. I went through this seed bead, through that superduo, the seed bead here, this seed bead here, that superduo, this seed bead, that superduo, that seed bead, that superduo, this seed bead, the superduo, and that seed bead. And now I'm hanging out of that 8-0 seed bead right there. And I will now take this thread, this other needle, and I will go around supporting the loop that I created with the 11-0s. I'm going to go, my thread is coming out on this side, so I'm going to go around and go through these beads going in this direction, and then I'm going to go around the loop and come through this 8-0 seed bead here. Then I'm going to go through that superduo, that 8-0, that superduo, that 8-0, superduo, 8-0, superduo, 8-0, superduo, and that 8-0 there. Well, I'm just going to tie it off here, and we'll be finished. So as stated, I went through this loop here to support it. I went through and came out the same bead that I started. So I went through, my thread was hanging out exactly through this, or the same bead. It was hanging out the same bead, this 8-0 seed bead here, just like it is now. And what I did was I went through the 11-0 seed beads, pushed the needle through each of these, and went through like 2 at a time, and then came back out through here to support that loop here. So I went through all these 11-0s and came out through here. Now I'm back where I was, and now I'm going to push through that. I'm going to push through this bead, the top hole, that seed bead, the top hole, that seed bead, the top hole, that seed bead, all the way until I get to this thread here, and I'm going to just tie them together several times to create a good tight knot so it won't come loose. And then I will mention after that to do another, push it through another flower and tie it off again the same way, just to add added support. So I will show you that and come back to you. So I pushed both my threads to the point here, to this point here, and they're both tied together now. It's partially secured, so now I'm gonna make sure that it doesn't ever that it stays secured. So I'm gonna push both threads again. I'm gonna push one of them going this way, and then come through this bead and go in this direction, coming out of this bead. Then the other thread I'm gonna push through. I just go through the same process. They're both coming out of this section here, so I can just go ahead and push it through here also, and come around and just tie it off here. They'll both be very secure, and they'll be hidden, and it won't come loose. And that will finish the bracelet. I also want to recommend that if it's not quite long enough, you can always add more of these rings on. As you can see, this ring here is it's not just a normal ring, it's a type of key ring. You want to use these. Don't use the split rings, I think they're called. They'll just separate eventually. But use a bunch of these key rings if you have them, and connect them together to make it the length that you desire. So when the bracelet is done, I will show you when I finish this part here and get to the end, I will show you how to do the rings. I'll get back to you. Okay, so I've finished tying it off, and I went and cut the threads. At this point, I just cut it where the knot was, and you can see that there's no visible trace of that thread. Now, what you want to do is if you want to put more rings on, you can put more rings on. What you want to do is you take these type of rings here, and you want to split. You want to get your thumbnail, or you can get a screwdriver if they're just too tight. The smaller they are, the harder it is to open them. This is a 7mm ring, and jump ring, and it's just to the right size where it's not just super difficult to open up and try to put it around this other one here. If they're any smaller than that, you're gonna need to most likely use a screwdriver, because it's just, you really got to wrestle with it. But I'm using the 7mm ones, and I'm gonna go ahead and try and put this on there. So I kind of got it started. I wedged it in there using my thumbnail, and I'm just going to go ahead and continue to push it through. Okay, so now I'm going to just keep circling it, like putting a key on a key ring. Okay, so now it's a little bit longer. So now I'm just gonna assume that that's all I need to do. If you want to do more rings, you can, but I'm just gonna assume that that's, in this example, that's where we want to stop as far as length. Now I'm gonna put one of these on, lobster clasp, and so I'm gonna open this jump ring here, and I'm gonna put that on. So I did the same way. I used my thumb to wedge it open and just pried it on there. Now this, like I said, like this is doable because I'm using 7mm jump rings. I'm not, they're not too small to where it's just super hard to pry them open. So so this would be the end result. As you can see on one end, jump ring with the lobster claw. The other end is just gonna have rings like this. So you would do this. You would just add the rings on, connect more rings as needed. So it's up to you how many rings is used on each side. But this is it. This is your end result. Anyhow, you can let me know if you have any questions, and subscribe, and I will soon have more tutorials available. But this is my first tutorial. I hope you liked it. Thank you.